It is Vont stirs the pot. If you don't know Vont, Vont is 23. He's lived here for about a year. He's got a little bit of a toot because he's from New Jersey. He definitely thinks he knows it all, and he is far from it. But let's let him stir the pot and see what's going on. Vont?
I'm about 95% sometimes right. I'm going to put that out there.
Okay.
This was popping all over social media the past couple days, so I wanted to bring it here. When we get married and you take my last name, if we get divorced, you have to get rid of it. And there's people saying, no, I don't, because that's my name now. No, you have to get rid of my last name.
Okay.
Because
as in, like, you would. So if you're divorced, you're saying, like, go back to your old name. You can't have mine anymore?
Yes.
Tell me why.
Because you took it only because we were married. So, Kevin, this is kind of stemmed from Kevin Hart's wife said in some interview, or ex-wife now, I'm keeping the last name. I've built a brand. And she's not Kevin Hart level, but she is kind of popping. She has her own line or whatever. And she said, I'm keeping the last name Hart, even though we are long gone from being married. And people were like, no, that's not your last name. And I agree. You weren't born with that last name, so why do you get to keep it?
Though. You absolutely can keep it. If you've established yourself for the last 15 years or whatever, 5 years, whatever, it is your choice.
I don't
the
think that's
guy
true.
does not get to own that
his
name.
Yes, he does.
You are being possessive and controlling is what you're doing.
It's his name.
So
you can keep the name.
I have an argument against this, too. So my mom, when she got married to my dad, so my mom is from Ohio, and then she moved here. She changed her last name when she married my dad. And then everyone that she knew in all of Minnesota knew her as Rhonda Hess versus her former last name. Yeah. So then when they got divorced, like, why would she change her last name back to what it was in Ohio when everyone here knows her as Rhonda Hess? So she's like, no, this is who I am. This is how everyone knows me. I'm going to stick to this.
Because she got divorced.
So?
She's not part of that anymore.
There's text messages coming in already. Vaughn said, repeat your statement.
I said, if we are married and you take my last name, then if we get divorced, you got to get rid of it also.
I think there's a lot of women who would probably say, I don't want his last name anymore.
Right.
But I know some people who have amicably divorced and they've very easily and happily kept that name because they don't want to change it back.
Sure.
I mean, I know probably nearly all the people I know that are divorced have their previous name, their married name.
Right.
Yeah, my mom still has my dad's last name, my last name, because she started a business with it.
Yeah.
So she wasn't going to change all of her business cards and everything that involved her business to go back to her maiden name.
People are texting saying, are you going to do the work to change it or
It's
am
a
I
lot of
going to
work.
pay for it? But it was not a lot of work when you changed it to my last name. Like, you had no problem deciding to go ahead and do that.
That's because it's a labor of love. It's a labor of love. If I marry you and my name becomes Dave Leak, I love you, and I'm glad to go down to the courthouse and sign all the paperwork. But now it's just like a pain in the ass. And here's another point that you're missing. The kids. The kids want to have the same last name as you. So if you and I get married and we have little Donna, little Leaks, little Donna and Vivian Leak, and now we get divorced, I still want my name to be the same as my kids.
The only time I will agree is when it comes to kids. Yes, because you don't want to have to explain to kids at a very tender age that why mommy and daddy have different last names. But other than that, if your kids are old enough, like, I don't know what the age would be, or even if we don't have kids, you don't get to keep my last name.
What about this? What about a woman who marries you and doesn't want Leak as a bad last name? Would that be an issue for you?
Can I be honest with you?
Yes.
I used to have an ex that said she would want to hyphen it, and I'd be like, no, you're gonna have you're going to be Dave Leak. You're not gonna be Dave Ryan hyphen Leak.
No, get out.
Uh-huh.
I ain't changed my last name for your goony ass. No.
Wow.
I'm so sorry.
It wasn't a deal breaker.
If you love somebody, though.
No. This is who I am. I've been Bailey Hess since I was born. So I will die as Bailey Hess. I'm not changing my last name to Leak.
So you're contradicting yourself then. Your mom was not born Rhonda Hess.
No, I know, but she didn't like her last name. So, like, her last name was kind of also a goony kind of last name. But she changed it. Go ahead, Vaughn.
No, no, good.
Okay. But she changed it, but then when she changed it, she moved. So, like, kind of like when people are saying, oh, if it's your brand, then I understand keeping it. Like Jenny's mom. Like, okay, well, she's made a brand. And even though, like, my mom didn't start a company or is, like, a celebrity, she essentially made a brand of Rhonda Hess in Minnesota. So her changing it back wouldn't make any sense.
We're talking about, Vaughn says, if you get divorced, you give back his last name. So you no longer get to be like Lucinda Leak. You have to go back to being Lucinda Carlson or whatever. And a lot of people are divided on this one. Here's a text message that says, okay, let's make a deal. Vont cannot have opinions anymore. All right, we got some people on the phone here also. Diana, who's right, Vont or
Everyone else.
Everyone else.
I think everyone else. Well, the thing is, I think in my divorce papers, I requested actually to take my ex-husband's last name off, even though we were married for 18 years. The reason why is because I was in the middle of getting my career, and I didn't want my diploma to have his last name because he was not part of it. I was already going through my divorce and everything, and he never supported me in the career that I wanted to get. And after I started it, I was like, no, screw you. You're not going to have the privilege of having your last name in my diploma.
And I think sometimes there's like a bitterness. It's like, I don't want you. So it was really, truly, you did not want his last name anymore.
No, I did not want his last name. I mean, my kids can have it. That's all the privilege to have it. All good. But me, I don't need it.
I think that's true. If there's like a bitter dispute or a bitter divorce, you don't want that person's name as part of your everyday life.
Yeah.
I think that's true. Thank you, Diana. Have a good day. Text message, Bailey, I completely agree. Why should I be expected to give up part of my identity and change my last name to a man's last name? For me and my husband, we decided to either both hyphenate
Yeah.
or just keep our own last name. So
Like Dave
Bailey
said.
doesn't want to be anybody but Bailey Hess.
Yeah.
Labor of love, like Dave said.
But then if it's a labor of love and then you end up getting divorced and you're like, well, you got to change it back, then why did I have to change it in the first place?
But nobody bets on divorcing. But
I
when
mean,
it happens, you
50%.
have to go through the things of, changing your last name back to your maiden
Ooh,
name.
Here's a good text. Vaughn, why don't you change your last name to Alyssa's last name? Thoughts?
I never said that I was opposed to that.
He is, though.
I will say at this moment I am.
I wouldn't do it. Seriously.
I wouldn't,
And
but-
the only reason is because it's not tradition.
Mhm.
And I would get so many questions. Why did you do that?
Really? I know one guy who changed his last name to his wife's last name.
I mean, you can.
Yeah.
I just would not because I like a little bit of tradition. I mean, yeah, sure, like, move forward, whatever. But I still like a little bit of tradition, you know?
I remember when before my last relationship, her last name was Perez-Hernandez. And she said, I'll change it to Perez-Leak, but I'm not going to just Leak. And I was like, that's just odd to me because you already have a hyphen last. Why wouldn't you want to just shorten it to Leak?
to make it extra long.
So then
Two
when
hyphens.
Alyssa and I started dating and she was like, oh no, I'm going to be Leak. I was like, I know that's right.
There's a lot of comments on this one. There's a lot of people there's different stories and opinions. Some people are very happy to change their name to their husband's last name.
Mm-hmm.
What about in a gay marriage or a lesbian marriage? Do you bicker over like hyphenating, or do you be like, okay, bitch, you're taking my last name? No,
See,
you're taking my last
I
name.
feel like that's how it should be, regardless of the genders of the people getting married. Like, which one sounds better? Just pick that one. I'm here for that.
I have
Right.
gay uncles, and when they got married, they hyphened it. I think the argument was whose goes first, which is, I mean, you'll always find something to argue about,
No,
but
I
they
think
do
that's
have it
great.
hyphen.
But I think you want to have the same name because you want to have that cohesiveness with your kids. You know what I mean? Let's say you are, I don't know, whatever it is, you want to have. How confusing is it that the kids have one different name and then you have another name? I know it works. I
Yeah.
know families in our family
I have
where
tons.
it works. Yeah.
I mean, I work with students as like a coach, and so many people do not have the same last names as their parents.
Yeah, I don't think it's that confusing. My aunt never took my uncle's last name, and then the kids had the last name of my uncle's, and it wasn't confusing to any of us, even when I was young.
But sometimes it could be. And I don't want my future child to go to school with a different last name and they're like questioning whether or not I'm around or like what the situation there is.
Yeah.
I'd rather them know,
Well, are you around?
we'll see in about, no, I will be a present father.
I knew somebody who she was going to get married. He was a guy who worked as an engineer at the radio station, not here. And he had a horrible last name, and I don't remember what it was, something like Blackhead or something like that,
Oh,
like
gosh.
Paul Blackhead. And she said, I will not marry you unless you change your name. He went down, he had his last name changed, and she dumped him.
Oh, no.
That's awful.
Tons of messages
I
on
think
this one.
the only reason I would ever change my last name is if I married somebody with the last name of Bailey, because that's a good bet.
Bailey?
Yeah, I'd be Bailey J. Bailey. Hilarious.
Oh, that'd be great, though.
Exactly.
You would do that, right?
I would 100% change my last name to Bailey.
Okay, gotcha.
You're
Yeah.
contradicting yourself, though. That's not what you're
But
already
that's
known
for
as.
the bit. That's
'Cause
for
it's a
the
good
bit.
Yeah, it's a good bit.
Yeah.
So,
Dumb.
wait, you're telling me your name is Bailey J. Bailey?
I'd be like, that's right.
That'd be a great radio
It
name.
wouldn't it?
And the J doesn't stand for anything.
Yes, exactly.
Does not.